Hey everyone, my name is Keisha. Thank you so much for tuning in to my channel. If this is your first time here, I just like to say welcome. Hey everyone, my name is Keesh, and thank you so much for tuning in to my podcast, Love Notes with Keesh. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that I'm very passionate about, and that is traditional Chinese medicine and how I was inspired to study traditional Chinese medicine due to a diagnosis that I received, Episcleritis, which I didn't know I had been dealing with my whole life, but once I sat down and really decided to figure out what was going on versus putting a continuous band-aid on the issue, I found out a lot of things in addition to the actual diagnosis that I experienced. So today, I just want to take the time to discuss that. I know many of you have been on my other platforms, my TikTok, my Instagram, and you have DM'd me, you've shared your stories about your experience with Episcleritis, and I've been promising to sit down and talk about my experience. And you know, life has just been lifing. We all understand that. And I finally had the time to really sit down, put my notes down, and think about what I wanted to say. So again, if that traditional Chinese medicine, Episcleritis, whether it's yourself or someone you know, a loved one, tune in. I'd be happy to discuss my experience thus far. I want to do a little bit of backstory. Growing up in elementary school, I was consistently sent home because the teachers thought that I had pink eye. They would call my mom, call my grandmother, like, hey, she gotta go, she got pink eye, you gotta get her up out of here. And I missed a lot of school. I was consistent with getting my schoolwork done. It would get brought in to me, but I did miss a lot of school because they just kept thinking that I was getting pink eye. And that went on throughout elementary and middle school. It was so intense at one point. I also had bronchitis, but it was so intense at one point, like I couldn't even go outside during recess. I did have friends that would stay in with me, so shout out to them during the time. But yeah, it just got so intense, even especially during the springtime. I just wouldn't even go outside during recess because my eyes would just flare up so bad. And to avoid that, I just wouldn't go outside during the spring. I would just stay in, do ping pong or some other activity during recess because it was in my best interest not to go outside. It just had been that bad. So this went on throughout elementary and middle school. And once I got to high school, it wasn't as intense. It wouldn't give the appearance of pink eye, but I would still have like a red tint over my eyes. My mom could have had stock and clear eye. I had her buying me clear eye I think I was getting a new bottle every 2 weeks because I was consistently hour on the hour. You know, you're in high school, like you're trying to be cool, you're trying to be popular. I didn't want my eyes looking red, so I just would use those probably hour on the hour within high school. That's what I was using because again, it wasn't giving that intense pink eye like when I was in elementary and middle school, but for my own vanity, personal reasons, I just would use those eye drops day in and day out, even throughout college. And once I got to college was my first experience with a chalazion, and I remember it specifically. I had my first one during my junior year because I got it during my probate, when I probated. And with that one, it wasn't, with the chalazion, that one wasn't as intense because I wear glasses, so I was able to kind of camouflage that with just my glasses because that doesn't impact the eye itself. It's not red. There's just a lump on the eye. It looks like a sty, but it's a hardened, it's hardened over time. Like with the sty, eventually it goes away after warm compresses or what have you, after like a week or so. A chalazion, for the most part, is staying extensive amounts of time. And so that one was that one. I think that first one I got stayed like a month, and then after that I got another one in like my mid-20s that stayed for a long time. And all of this again is just tying into the progression of my eye health sort of feeling. So the second chalazion I had, I was in like my mid to late 20s, and it stayed so long. I think that one stayed for like right about 2 or 3 months. I think it was 3 months because it stayed a really long time, so much so that I had set up an appointment. I was actually in the chair at the optometrist's office getting ready to get a drain, and I pulled out at the last minute because I'm not a needle girl, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna wait. But I had no idea that that was tied into what had been going on in my early childhood with the consistent like pink eye well, thinking I had pink eye into middle school, into high school. I knew you was tied into that first lesion that I had in undergrad, but I had no idea that all of this was encompassing of just a disorder within the eye that just was progressively showing its way in different ways throughout the different decades or eras of my life, and that would eventually come to a head and get me to where I am today with the overall episcleritis diagnosis. So fast forward now to 2020, when I really realized what was going on. What happened, it was just prior to the pandemic. I had noticed again I was getting consistent redness in my eyes. So I had gone to my PCP at the time, and it was just like, okay, yeah, probably pink eye. We would just give me some drops. Actually, I take that back. I didn't initially go to my PCP. I went to like an urgent care, and they were just like pink eye. They gave me some drops. I used the drop. It seemingly went away, and I carried on. But as time progressed and then the pandemic happened, I noticed that it was starting to give more of the appearance of the pink eye that I was experiencing when I was younger. So I panicked a little bit and went to the doctor again, urgent care again, and they're still just like, it's pink eye. So I think I went to the urgent care like maybe 2 times, and then I finally was just like, I probably need to go let my PCP know what's going on. So I went to my PCP, told her what I was experiencing, and that's when I first got the diagnosis of episcleritis. And if you're not familiar with episcleritis is a common, mostly benign, unilateral or bilateral inflammatory condition affecting the tissue between the conjunctiva and sclera, not to be confused with the more serious scleritis that affects a deeper tissue of the eye. It can be distinguished by an ophthalmologist or optometrist performing a blanch of the eye. If the redness disappears after the blanch, it is episcleritis. Episcleritis triggers include stress, allergies, trauma, hormonal changes, autoimmune disorders such as irritable bowel syndrome or IBS, arthritis, Crohn's, etc. So with that, my doctor decided to just give me some drops, and she said, just use the drops to, wasn't necessarily any drops that were going to get the redness out, but they were just to lubricate the eye while it was infected. So I went away with that information, and it just kept progressively getting worse. I'll insert some pictures somewhere here to show, but it was to the point sometimes it would, like I said, it could either be unilateral or bilateral. Sometimes it would be both of them. And I mean, they would be red, like inflamed, like I would look like something was seriously wrong with me. So let me backtrack a bit. In addition to those lubricating eye drops, she also gave me steroid eye drops. With all of that information, with the diagnosis, she'd given me like a printout of what episcleritis was, what to expect, what all it entailed, along with the lubricating eye drops. Or she had maybe just told me what eye drops to get at the store. I don't think those were anything special. And she also gave me a steroid prescription, eye drop prescription. So what I did with that information is I looked up. I am a researcher. One thing about me is I am going to research. I'm going to figure things out on my own. I'm going to listen. I can be a bit stubborn, but I do like to do my own research. I don't just like taking things for what I'm being told. I want to know for myself as well too. What I did was took all that information, started Googling, looking up episcleritis, because again, up until this point, had never heard of it. Came across these patient boards. You get in all those patient boards where people are giving their own personal experience. So I found a few patient boards of a lot of community of people that were experiencing or had experienced episcleritis, scleritis. And one of the common things across the board I saw was that for the most part, everyone had been prescribed steroids, whether that had been the actual eye drop steroid or the oral steroid that they're taking by mouth. But the common theme I saw was that they were getting those prescriptions. It was working at the time, but over time, because your body becomes immune to anything that you do, especially medication wise, they were having to consistently increase their dosage because, again, the body got used to it, and they were having to increase that to get the same effect they would originally get at the smaller dosage. And the one in particular with the orals, especially steroids, was steroids, of course, mess up the gut flora, and they were experiencing different IBS, the irritable bowel syndrome. So it's like you were putting a band-aid on one thing and flaring up something else. So I had just decided that maybe I won't do the steroids right now. But again, she had only given me the eye drop. I hadn't been given oral steroid at that time. But even with that, even with the eye drops, I was like, maybe I should just wait a little bit and see, because again, I've never been one for medicine. I'm not a big medicine taker. And after reading those boards, I really didn't want to get intertwined. And then I was just hoping maybe it'll just go away. It did before, meaning in my childhood, so maybe it'll just go away. And I had just opted not to use the eye drops, just to use the lubricating eye drops, warm compresses, cold compresses, to keep it as not as irritated. Time progresses and it continuously gets worse. At the time, I was a director within higher ed, so I was the face of my department. So you can imagine how hard that was, dealing with what I was dealing with and still trying to do all of the facets of my job, being in front of the camera and hosting these different meetings and what have you. And it was getting to be a lot on my psyche and just overall. And so through a series of events, I was able to go out, luckily, on FMLA, and I got my doctor to sign off on it, because there were just a lot of different things going on at that time with COVID. We all have our experience with having to deal with that so suddenly. And then with everything going on with my vision progressively getting worse and experiencing all that, those redness, that inflammation, it was just really taking a toll on me. So I was able to get out on FMLA, and throughout that time, I started to go see other specialists, other doctors. I had initially gone to, right after my PCP, gone to an ophthalmologist who had also confirmed, yes, it's episcleritis. I did the blanching, and it came back, of course, when you, like I had mentioned, when you do that blanching, when it is the episcleritis, it will give the eye the white appearance. If it's that deeper tissue, the scleritis, it won't. So he confirmed episcleritis. He gave me the steroids. I took the steroids as instructed, and it was fine. It was eye drop steroids. They cleared it right on up. I would say maybe within the first 2 usages, it was clear. But one thing it did, it gave me a really bad headache. But again, I'm just like, okay, see, maybe this is okay. Everything seems to be okay. So I went through followed my instructions, did as I was told, and then there came the waning period. So if you've ever had any experience with steroids, you never just go off of them. Your physician, whoever is the medical doctor over your usage of those, progressively wane you off, or however they may do, especially with the eye drop steroids. The oral steroids that you may take can be progressive over time. You can continue to use those, but you never, for the most part, are going to use eye drop steroids consistently, because it'll continuously wear down and on the eyeball itself. Did as I was told, was waned off of them probably like 2 or 3 days after I finished the prescription. It flared up so bad. I remember laying in bed one night, and it just felt like my eyeball was on fire, and I was just like, I cannot do this. Like, I don't know what's happening. I did what I was told to do, and here I'm still experiencing something now 10 times worse. At least prior, it wasn't painful. It just sometimes would be uncomfortable, because you can feel like there's grit in the eyes. Not anything extensive that you just like, it's just kind of, okay, it's a little uncomfortable. But it really triggered my eye and the inflammation, and it was horrible. And I just remember, I am not using those steroids anymore. I got to find someone else to help me, because there has to be another way. This is how I was introduced into holistic traditional Chinese medicine. During one of my many searches, Google, YouTube, trying to figure out what else can be done. Because although statistically showing episcleritis is considered a pretty common disorder, there's not a lot of videos out there or information about it, as opposed to maybe other disorders or diseases where you can look it up and see people's experience with it. I came across 3 different doctors, and this was my first introduction into traditional Chinese medicine and holistic practices. And I read their blogs, I watched their videos, listened to their podcasts, whatever they had available. And I just remember feeling so inspired that there were other answers outside of what I had been told. What is the difference when you're thinking Western and Eastern medicine? And this is no shade, no tea. They both have their own place. It's not saying one is better than the other. They both have their pros and their cons. This is just for educational purposes so you can better understand the difference between the two. So if you're in the United States like myself, the United States follows more Western medical practices. And then you have other countries such as like Japan and China that follow Eastern medical practices. And the biggest difference between the two is Western medicine focuses more on the symptoms. In my situation, that would be episcleritis. I have the redness. They're using the steroids to cure the redness, to get rid of the redness, not necessarily looking at what else is going on. Versus Eastern medicine is encompassing of the full mind, body, and soul. It's looking at the full scope of your whole existence. In my situation, episcleritis, you have the redness because you have episcleritis, but what caused that? And the practice is not focused on the redness, it's focused on the root. What caused this to happen? Let's put our attention there, because at the end of the day, that's what needs to be healed, not just the symptom of the redness. To differentiate the treatments for both the Western and Eastern medical practices within my diagnosis of the episcleritis, the warm cold compresses for Western medicine, warm cold compresses, the lubricating eye drops, the oral steroids, the steroids within the actual eye drops. Those essentially were the options, or just ignore it. Like, again, it's not anything life-threatening. It'll eventually go away. So this is, for the most part, probably why, especially if you're experiencing episcleritis, you're here. What exactly did I use within Eastern medical practice? What did I use? Eastern medicine does focus on your full mind, body, and spirit. So one thing that works for one person may not do for the other. So that's why I very strongly advise you to do your research to make sure that you're looking into what's going to work best for you. Because again, it's not just the body, it's also the mind and the spirit. So where are you mentally? Where are you spiritually? It's all about your surrounding, what type of environment are you in? Are you under a lot of stress? All of those things take into account. So don't look at this list as like, this is exactly what I'm supposed to do. And I want to make sure I'm making something clear here. This video is for educational purposes only. It's not for you to jump ship and decide you're just going to haphazardly stop doing what you've always been doing. My overall, one thing I hope that you take from this video is just to go out there and do your research. Whether it's episcleritis or whatever you may be experiencing, do your research and see what other options, what else is out there, what else could be missed, what else can you maybe bring to your physician. You never want to just haphazardly stop doing something and jumping onto something without consulting with a trusted medical professional. We are here to be responsible. We're going to be safe. Again, I had mentioned I had gone to several doctors, so I knew that what I was experiencing wasn't life-threatening, and I had the option to decide that this is what I wanted to do. This is what I want to tap into. So again, I just want to make sure we're being responsible. We're being we're being safe, and we're not just doing things, just jumping ship. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that. Okay. So now let's get into the practices that I've used so far to help me with my episcleritis diagnosis. First on the list for me, what I did, what I'm certain had a big impact on my overall success thus far with where I came from to where I am today, is my overall lifestyle and my food intake. Again, Eastern medicine is very focused on the full scope. So it's not so much a diet versus a lifestyle. So I had always, for the most part, been pretty healthy, but I really tightened up once I realized, that I was going to go this route and try to holistically heal myself, heal my body. And I did a pretty intense, cut out a lot of excess sugar, did a lot of water intake, a lot of vegetables, appropriate proteins. So again, to just make sure eating a clean, organic, diet. And I say that in hesitance because I know that a lot of those things come from a place of privilege that's not necessarily affordable or not within means of a lot of people. So I just say with that, just do the best that you can as far as that goes. You know, we can only do the best that we can. I think the biggest thing is sugar. Sugar is such a addiction, and it's in so many things that we don't realize. Even the things you would just think like, oh, this is something like a condiment or something. There's a lot of sugar in a lot of things. So my biggest advice is just the things that you are able to buy, just start looking at those nutrient tags. Look at the ingredients that's in there. See how much sugar is in there. See how much sodium is in there, and just go from there. Just go with what's affordable for you, what you can do. You know your budget, you know what you're able to do. So that's just my advice for that. Change your lifestyle. Make sure you're eating the rainbow, they like to say. Make sure you have colorful salads, veggies. The water is very important. My thing, I don't drink any sodas. I do the kombuchas. There's a lot of different there's the OG kombuchas, and then you have the more commercialized kombuchas now, which again all goes into budget because those drinks can be on the expensive side. You have your poppies, you have my favorite Olipop, and a lot of others that are good for the good health. So again, it's just a matter of what you can do. Don't beat yourself up too much on that one. You just do what you can, but just be more cognizant, as I mentioned. Even with whatever you are, be mindful of those sugars, because you just wanted to clear out those organs, essentially the main organ system, and make sure they're getting that appropriate flush, because our diets are so filled with so many different harmful things. The sugars and the inflammation is just pertinent in the joints in the body. Maybe cut down on the fast foods, or just take it step by step. I never suggest just going in the kitchen and throwing everything out that you had in there. Take it step by step, take it day by day. That's the mantra of my life. I take it day by day, and each day I try to make an improvement upon the next day. And sometimes I don't, sometimes I stay stagnant, sometimes I go backwards. That's life. So the next suggestion I want to get into is herbs. Eastern medicine is really big on herbs. There are so many herbs that you can tap into. At one point I went a little crazy, I have to admit, with just buying teas and, you know, getting all these different ones and not really being responsible or knowing what exactly I was doing. So I would just say, again, do your research on those herbs to see which ones that would work the best for you and what you're experiencing. But as far as Episcleritis goes, the ones that that helped me the most, because I actually had a Episcleritis flare up like maybe 2 weeks ago. So I kind of did my own little test study, because before that I had gone a couple of months. It's been some time, like it's been a progress. And again, that's one thing with Eastern medicine. Don't expect this to happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take patience. And I, again, had a flare up like maybe 2 weeks ago, and I was like, well, this will be good. I can kind of do a case study on myself. So the herbs that I find that work the best for me are burdock root, chrysanthemums, and it could be, for the most part, they come like in the flower format. You could just get you like a steep or something and put the flowers in there and be able to do your teas or however you want to do it, as well as red clover and dandelion root. So again, I would say burdock root, dandelion root, red clover, and chrysanthemum as far as herbs go for Episcleritis. My next suggestion would be homeopathic eye drops. And again, these are not specific to getting out the redness. They're just to help with that dryness, because as I mentioned, and if you experience it, you know, sometimes you can get that grittiness and that itchiness, and the homeopathic eye drops do help soothe that while you're still going through the flare-up itself. You know, it's not too specific. It's just any homeopathic. I say that because the other eye drop, I would just say any eye drop that's not focused on removing the redness, because that eye drop is just specifically looking to remove the redness. It's not necessarily nourishing the eye. So any hydrating homeopathic eye drop that you can find that can assist during the time of the flare-up, I would advise that, just to keep the eye lubricated and, you know, not feeling dry. So again, any hydrating homeopathic eye drop that you find that works, you don't have to be too specific on that, because as long as you're not getting the one that's targeting the redness, any other one that you get should be fine. So next, I'd like to get into facial cleansing products. And you may be thinking, what does that have to do with episcleritis? It has everything to do with episcleritis. Remember, when we're tapping into Eastern medical practices, it's about lifestyle changes. So it's not something we're just doing at the flare-up. We're doing it every day consistently. I will tag everything below. This couple, they're two optometrists, and they were two of the doctors that I found during my initial research of holistic practices. And I basically stalked their YouTube and their blog because they have so much important information out there about a lot of different disorders, not just eye disorders, not necessarily just episcleritis, and their insight about, they tap into, you know, the healthy diets and I don't like to use the word diets. They tap into the healthy lifestyles, changing your lifestyles as well. So I'll link them below. But yes, I have been using this product consistently since 2020. I use it in the morning. I use it at night. You want to make sure you get a really good lather around, especially the lash and the lid, because it's important to keep that environment clear, especially during a flare-up, but we're going to do it every day. And also a hypochlorous acid is also really good during flare-ups in particular. You can use it whenever you like to, but and hypochlorous acid is just a really good spray that helps clean and rid the lid and lash area of that extra debris or bacteria. And so there's instructions as far as, you know, the proper usage for that as well. But I will link them below. But yes, I love this product because they have really clean ingredients. It has a really good lather. And again, I've just been using it consistently since 2020. And whether you choose to use that particular one or not, just make sure whatever you're using really good around that lid and lash, so that we can make sure that we're keeping our face and especially that lid and lash area clean. Next, I'd like to get into makeup, and this is for the hers, the he's, the theys, whoever wears makeup. It's very important. We just talked about facial, making sure we have the correct facial products that are hydrating, that have clean ingredients, that are doing what they need to do. The same thing goes for the makeup. When we want the beat, we want to make sure that what we're putting on our face is conducive to our health. And throughout my research, what I realized, there were makeup brands that I won't name because there's no tea, no shade, but there just were harmful ingredients in there that just were not conducive to my overall health, especially with knowing now that I had episcleritis. So I had to put those to the side. And now what I typically wear, for the most part, if not 99% of my products, are Ilia Cosmetics. They are a company that is very driven by clean ingredients, making sure that they stay honest with what's in their products. And I have now been using them for 4 years. I love their products, and all of this information I'm giving, nothing is sponsored, nothing is branded. It's just my personal experience. I'm just sharing the tea of what I have experienced with episcleritis. I think it's important just making sure we're using brands that care about the honesty of their ingredients to make sure that it is conducive to our health. So we've talked a lot about the physical body, different suggestions I have for that, but I mentioned that Eastern medicine is about the full mind, body, and soul. So let's tap into some mind and soul portions of overall what I think has been conducive in my healing. One thing in particular is journaling. Journaling is so very important. So not to get too deep of a dive, I can, if you'd like me to, in another video, just let me know in the comments below. The Eastern medical practices focuses on organ harmony. So they look at each of the major organs. Each organ has like a sister organ and a yin and a yang organ attached, both of them working together. And it's all about the balance of those organs. And when there is disharmony in one of those organs, there's disharmony that flows into the other one. So again, it goes into look into the root, because it's essentially a circle, it's a cycle. And if there's one kink in the chain, none of the other organs are able to do as they need to. The eyes are connected heavily to the liver, and the emotion of the liver is anger. And I have another podcast that I'll link here or put somewhere. It's okay to be angry. And we experience a lot of things in this life. There's a lot of traumas. There's a lot of unspoken words that we go through, and it builds up. It's building up in the body. It's sinking into these different little spaces. We think that, oh, I got over it. I didn't. But what they say, the body keeps a score. The mind, the body knows what's going on, because the mind, you've pushed it out of there. You've suppressed it. You didn't push it anywhere. It's still in the body. So that's why it's very important to get that anger out, to get those feelings out. And journaling has been very, very important for me throughout this process, throughout this journey. And so I just want to make sure we are journaling, meditating. I know a lot of those words are key words now. You're probably just like rolling your eyes at me, but I don't mean in the way of like, you know, I seriously mean meditating. And meditating doesn't mean you're sitting cross-legged, eyes closed. It could just be you're drinking a cup of coffee, or you're on your commute to work. It doesn't have to be anything too outlandish. It's just a moment where you're sitting still, you're in oneness, and you're focusing on your breath, your breathing, and you're really paying attention to what's going on. So again, I say journaling is very important. To kind of tie that back, the liver, which is connected to the eyes, the liver, one of the main functions of the liver is to nourish the eyes. And when there's heat in the liver, there's so much pent up anger. They call it liver heat in the terminology of Eastern medicine. It can boil over into those other organs. So it's just very important to make sure we're journaling, making sure we know it's okay to be angry, it's okay to be sad, but we have to do something with that energy. And journaling is a really good way to express that out, and meditating and being present in that moment. I'm a very big advocate for journaling. I know that it has done so much for me as far as going through my own personal healing journey. I think that it's very important, and we also knowing that the process isn't linear. Like I mentioned, one day is bad. One day could be amazing. The next day you could go 2 steps back. It's just all about progressing forward. You know, just all about doing your best within each day. I also, small little plug, I did create 2 journals that are both available on my website, just focusing in on healing isn't linear. I just think it's very important that you get those emotions out, you put them out there, and it's just all a part of the overall healing and making sure that energy has somewhere to go, because energy is never destroyed, it's just transferred, and you want to transfer it into something conducive to your health and not staying stagnant in your body and creating that dis-ease. So the next one I want to talk about is not necessarily anything like medical related, not even well, I guess it could be mentally, because it's the thing about when you're tapping into Eastern medical practices with healing, it's going to be a long haul. It's not going to be anything quick like the steroids, where I was just like, I used that and 2 days later the eyes were clear. It's going to be a long haul, and you still have life to live. I mentioned I was the director at the time. I was the face of my department. I still had work to do. The bills still had to be paid. So I picked up these glasses on Amazon, and I wore these every day. And I am a fashion girly, so people probably just thought, oh, she's just being Keisha. She just got these glasses on, and this is just what she's doing. But they actually were there to help boost my confidence. So if you can see, I mean, you can still kind of see, but they're a little bit tinted, so they would help me still not have on full like sunglasses, because I mean, that's weird. You're in the middle of the day, you got on full sunglasses, but just mentally to help me get through the day, because I knew this was a long haul. Again, this was not going to be a process that was going to happen overnight. It takes discipline. It takes a lot of discipline, because you just, especially when it's something visual. We're all people. We're all human. We want to present ourselves in the best light. But I knew that the steroids, the things that I was being given, were just not going to work for me. So this was just a confidence booster. It's not anything medical. It's not anything that, oh, and for the most part, my full list, the lifestyle change with what we're eating, the herbs, the makeups, the facial cleansers, these aren't things that instantly, oh, it's fixed. These are things because we know we're playing the long haul. We're playing chess. We're playing chess here. We know it's going to take time. We know it's going to take discipline. But during that time, you're still human. You still got to get out there. Still got jobs. The bills still got to be paid. And I just felt along the way, these just helped me stay in my discipline, stay grounded, keep sight on what my goal was, but still help me mentally, so I knew that I could still get through the day in my most confident form. In closing, my biggest thing that I hope that you take away is knowing that it's going to take time. It's not anything that's going to happen overnight. It's not anything that it's just a 1-2 step, mix A plus B equals C, and then that's the solution. It's just simply not going to be that when you are focusing on Eastern medical practices. It's going to take time for you doing your own research, taking your own health into your hands responsibly, and seeing what works best for you. My goal for this video was to try to kind of share with you what worked for me while I was playing the long haul of the healing. I hope this video was helpful. Please let me know in the comments below if you felt like it was. If you'd like me to do a deeper dive into organ harmony, I'm happy to do so. I've been studying traditional Chinese medicine now for about 4 years, so I do have a lot to learn. I'm still learning a lot. I'm still exploring a lot, but I'm happy to share what I have learned thus far. It's very intricate. It's very interesting, the overall how they look at the organ system, and how we can be more informed about how our body is operating. So again, I'm happy to share that. I do a deeper dive into my experience in my book that came out in 2021, Lavender Heart Tea. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I'll leave the link below. And if you feel called to tap into that, please do so. But again, just let me know in the comments below if you found this helpful. If you'd like to know more, I'm across for the most part, all social media platforms. If you have additional questions or concerns. And until next time, peace.